Welcome back to the channel Valuable Coins HD, Coin Lovers. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a piece of American history that you may not have given much thought to, the 1967 Roosevelt dime. While dimes might seem like the unsung heroes of U.S. coinage, this particular one from 1967 has more value than you might imagine. It could be worth far more than its original face value, and in some cases, it might even be worth a small fortune. If you've got one of these in your collection or tucked away in a jar of old change, stick around. By the end of this video, you'll learn exactly how much your 1967 Roosevelt dime could be worth. Let's start with a bit of history. The Roosevelt dime was first introduced in 1946, created to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who passed away in 1945. Franklin D. Roosevelt was a beloved figure in American history, known for his leadership during the Great Depression and World War II. His legacy was cemented when the U.S. Mint decided to feature his image on the dime, replacing the Mercury dime, which had been in circulation for over 25 years. The Roosevelt dime quickly became one of the most recognizable coins in U.S. currency, and it's still in circulation today. The 1967 Roosevelt dime is part of the coin's ongoing production. It was produced during a time of transition in the United States, as the country was navigating through the social and political changes of the 1960s. The 1960s were a time of economic change as well, with inflation rising and the cost of living increasing. Despite these challenges, the Roosevelt dime continued to circulate widely, and millions of these coins were minted during that year. While it might seem like just another dime, the 1967 version has its own unique set of characteristics that make it particularly interesting to collectors. One of the first things to consider when evaluating the value of a coin like the 1967 Roosevelt dime is its condition. Over the years, many of these dimes were used in daily transactions, which means that most of the coins you'll come across will show signs of wear and tear. The more worn a coin is, the lower its value tends to be. Coins that have been heavily circulated can often have scratches, discoloration, or other signs of damage. This is important to note because the condition of a coin plays a significant role in determining its value in the numismatic market. However, if you happen to find a 1967 Roosevelt dime in uncirculated condition, that's when the magic happens. A coin that has been carefully preserved with no signs of wear can be far more valuable than a typical dime. Coins like this are highly sought after by collectors, and their value can be significantly higher than what you might expect for a regular dime. The better the condition, the higher the price it can command, so if you have a 1967 Roosevelt dime in pristine condition, your coin is definitely worth a second look. But there's more to the story than just condition. Another factor that can affect the value of the 1967 Roosevelt dime is its mint mark. You might notice a small letter on the coin, usually just below the date, which indicates where the coin was minted. The 1967 Roosevelt dime could have one of three mint marks: D for the Denver Mint, S for the San Francisco Mint, or no mint mark, which indicates it was minted in Philadelphia. The mint mark can make a big difference in the coin's rarity and, therefore, its value. For example, the 1967 Roosevelt dime minted in Philadelphia, without a mint mark, was produced in the highest numbers, making it the most common. However, the 1967 dimes minted in Denver and San Francisco were produced in smaller quantities and are considered rarer. As a result, a 1967 Roosevelt dime with the D or S mint mark can be worth more, especially if it's in excellent condition. The rarity factor plays a key role in how much a coin is worth, and the lower the mintage, the higher the value. Now, let's talk about something that could really drive the value of your 1967 Roosevelt dime up: mint errors. Mint errors are those little mistakes that happen during the minting process, and they can make a coin a highly sought-after collector's item. For example, one common mint error to look out for is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin is struck off-center, meaning the design is misaligned, giving the coin a unique, lopsided appearance. Coins with off-center strikes are very rare and often command premium prices. Another mint error to keep an eye on is the double die error. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin is misaligned, causing the image to appear more than once on the coin. If you find a 1967 Roosevelt dime with a double die error, especially if the error affects the date or the lettering. You could be in possession of a very valuable coin. Other mint errors include die cracks, which occur when the die used to strike the coin develops cracks that appear as raised lines on the coin surface. These errors, while subtle, can add value to the coin and make it highly collectible. So, how much could your 1967 Roosevelt dime be worth? Well, it depends on several factors, including its condition, mint mark, and whether it has any mint errors. In average condition, a 1967 Roosevelt dime might only be worth around its face value, 10 cents. However, when it comes to uncirculated examples or those with rare mint errors, the price can increase dramatically. If you have a 1967 Roosevelt dime that's in gem uncirculated condition or features a rare minting error, you could be looking at a value of up to $51,000. Yes, that's right, $51,000 for a single dime. It may seem hard to believe, but that's the kind of value you could be sitting on if you have one of these rare coins. Imagine having a coin that's been sitting in your collection or tucked away in a drawer for years, and it turns out to be worth that much. The world of coin collecting is filled with surprises, and this is just one example of how a seemingly ordinary coin can become a valuable treasure. If you think you might have a 1967 Roosevelt dime that could be worth something, it's definitely worth getting it appraised by a professional coin grader. They can help you determine its condition, mint mark, and whether it features any mint errors that could increase its value. Today, we're going to uncover the hidden value of a coin that might be sitting in your pocket or tucked away in a drawer, a 1980 Roosevelt dime. Now, you might be thinking, it's just a dime, right? But hold on to your seats, because this seemingly ordinary coin could be worth far more than its face value, and in some cases, it could fetch a mind-blowing price at auction. Stick with us until the end of the video, because we're going to reveal exactly how much this 1980 Roosevelt dime could be worth in today's market. Let's start by taking a look at the Roosevelt dime's history. The Roosevelt dime was first introduced in 1946, shortly after the passing of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. FDR, as many of you know, was one of the most influential figures in American history, leading the country through the Great Depression and World War II. To honor his memory, the U.S. Mint decided to feature his likeness on the dime, replacing the Mercury dime, which had been in circulation for over 2 decades. The Roosevelt dime has remained in circulation ever since, and its design has stood the test of time. By the time the 1980s rolled around, the Roosevelt dime was a common sight in American wallets and cash registers. But the 1980 Roosevelt dime isn't just another run-of-the-mill dime, there's something special about it. While dimes are generally low-value coins, certain factors make some 1980 Roosevelt dimes much more desirable to collectors. These factors include their condition, mint mark, and the possibility of rare mint errors. Understanding these elements can help you determine if your 1980 Roosevelt dime is worth more than just 10 cents. The first and most obvious factor that affects the value of a coin is its condition. Most coins from the 1980s, like the 1980 Roosevelt dime, were heavily circulated. They were used in countless transactions, which means many of them show signs of wear and tear. These signs could include scratches, discoloration, or fading of the design. While these dimes are still valuable to collectors, their worth will typically remain close to face value. However, if you happen to come across a 1980 Roosevelt dime in uncirculated condition, that's when things get interesting. Uncirculated coins are those that have never been used in regular transactions and show no signs of wear or damage. They are as close to perfect as a coin can get. Uncirculated 1980 Roosevelt dimes are much rarer and therefore more valuable than those that have been used over the years. If you find one of these pristine dimes, you could be looking at a coin that's worth far more than just 10 cents. Another important factor in determining the value of a 1980 Roosevelt dime is its mint mark. If you've ever examined older U.S. coins, you may have noticed a small letter located on the reverse side, just below the olive branch. This mint mark indicates where the coin was minted. For the 1980 Roosevelt dime, there are 3 possible mint marks you might find: D for Denver, S for San Francisco, and no mint mark, which indicates the coin was minted in Philadelphia. In general, dimes minted in Philadelphia without a mint mark are the most common. Dimes with the D mint mark from Denver are also relatively common, but dimes with the S mint mark from San Francisco tend to be rarer. This means that a 1980 Roosevelt dime with an S mint mark could be worth more than one minted in Philadelphia or Denver, especially if it's in good condition. Now, let's talk about something that could really make your 1980 Roosevelt dime stand out from the rest: mint errors. Mint errors occur when something goes wrong during the minting process, and they can turn an ordinary coin into a rare and valuable collector's item. There are several types of mint errors that you'll want to look out for with the 1980 Roosevelt dime. One of the most coveted mint errors is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin is not properly aligned in the press, causing the design to be struck off-center. If you find a 1980 Roosevelt dime with an off-center strike, it's considered a rare find and can be worth much more than a regular dime. Another potential mint error is a double die, which occurs when the die used to strike the coin is misaligned, causing the design to appear twice or doubled on the coin. If you spot a double die error, especially on the date or lettering, you could be holding a highly valuable piece of numismatic history. Additionally, you might come across dimes with die cracks, where the die used to strike the coin develops a crack. These cracks create raised lines on the surface of the coin, which can add a unique character to the coin and increase its appeal to collectors. Mint errors like these are rare, and they are highly sought after by serious coin collectors who are always on the lookout for one-of-a-kind items to add to their collections. So, how much could your 1980 Roosevelt dime be worth? In most cases, the value of a standard, circulated 1980 Roosevelt dime will be very close to face value, just 10 cents. However, if you happen to find an uncirculated example or a coin with a rare mint error, that's when the value really starts to rise. Depending on the condition, mint mark, and any errors, the value of your 1980 Roosevelt dime could range from a few dollars to much higher amounts. But here's the real jaw-dropper: if you happen to have a 1980 Roosevelt dime with a rare minting error or in uncirculated condition, it could be worth as much as $37,000. Yes, you heard that right, $37,000 for a single dime. That's the potential value of a rare, well-preserved 1980 Roosevelt dime. It's incredible to think that a dime, which is often considered pocket change, could carry such a high price tag. If you think you have a 1980 Roosevelt dime that might be worth something, it's definitely worth having it appraised by a professional coin grader. They can help determine its condition, mint mark, and any mint errors that could make it a rare and valuable find. So, the next time you're rummaging through your coin jar or browsing through your collection, take a close look at your 1980 Roosevelt dimes. You might just have a hidden treasure on your hands. Today, we're going to explore a coin that might seem like just another dime from the 1970s, but trust me, this little Roosevelt dime from 1977 could hold a lot more value than you might think. In fact, some of these dimes can be worth a small fortune. You won't believe how much a 1977 Roosevelt dime could fetch in today's coin market. Stick around, because by the end of the video, you'll know exactly what makes this coin special and why it's highly coveted by collectors. Now, let's start by understanding the history of the Roosevelt dime. The Roosevelt dime was first introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt after his passing. As you might know, FDR was one of the most influential U.S. presidents, leading the country through the Great Depression and World War II. The Roosevelt dime replaced the Mercury dime, which had been in circulation for over 2 decades. Since its debut, the Roosevelt dime has become one of the most recognizable coins in U.S. currency. By 1977, the Roosevelt dime had already been in circulation for over 30 years, and the design had stayed the same. If you take a close look at the coin, you'll notice President Roosevelt's profile on the obverse side, facing left. The reverse features a torch, olive branch, and oak branch, which symbolize liberty, peace, and strength, respectively. It's a simple design, but the significance of this coin stretches far beyond its appearance. Now, let's talk about what makes the 1977 Roosevelt dime so interesting. While most dimes from the 1970s are considered common and not particularly valuable, some of them stand out. As with all coins, the value of a 1977 Roosevelt dime depends largely on its condition. If you have one that's been well preserved, free from scratches or discoloration, it could be worth much more than the face value of 10 cents. In fact, uncirculated dimes from 1977, especially those in mint condition, are in high demand from collectors, but it doesn't end there. The value of your 1977 Roosevelt dime can be even higher if it has one of the rarer features, a mint mark or a minting error. If you've ever looked at older US coins, you've probably noticed a small letter beneath the date on the reverse side of the coin. This mint mark indicates where the coin was produced. For the 1977 Roosevelt dime, you might find the D mint mark for coins minted in Denver, the S mint mark for coins minted in San Francisco, or no mint mark at all for coins minted in Philadelphia. Now, you might be wondering why this is important. Well, some mint marks are rarer than others. For example, a 1977 Roosevelt dime with the S mint mark from San Francisco is typically more valuable than a standard D or Philadelphia minted coin. Why? Because fewer dimes were produced in San Francisco that year, making those coins more difficult to find. A 1977 Roosevelt dime with an S mint mark could fetch a higher price among collectors. The real kicker, though, comes with minting errors. Mint errors are those rare, accidental occurrences that happen during the coin's production, and they can significantly increase a coin's value. Minting errors can include a variety of things, such as double dies, off-center strikes, or even the wrong planchet being used to strike the coin point. One of the most sought-after minting errors for the 1977 Roosevelt dime is the double die error. This occurs when the coin's die is misaligned, causing the design to be struck twice. When you look at a coin with a double die error, you might notice that the date or lettering appears to be doubled. This can make the coin especially appealing to collectors who want to add a unique, one-of-a-kind piece to their collection. Another type of error to look out for is an off-center strike. This happens when the coin is not properly aligned in the minting machine, causing the design to be struck off-center. An off-center 1977 Roosevelt dime can be a very valuable coin, as it is considered rare and highly collectible. Die cracks are another type of mint error that can add value to your coin. These cracks form on the die used to strike the coin and create raised lines or patterns on the surface of the coin. A 1977 Roosevelt dime with a noticeable die crack can be a sought-after item for collectors who appreciate the unique features of these error coins. But what does this all mean in terms of value? Well, if you happen to find a 1977 Roosevelt dime in uncirculated condition with a rare mint mark or a minting error, you could be sitting on a hidden treasure. A well-preserved coin from this year could be worth more than you might expect, but if your coin has a rare feature, such as a double die error or off-center strike, that's when things get really exciting. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the value of the 1977 Roosevelt dime. For most 1977 Roosevelt dimes in average condition, you're looking at a value close to face value, around 10 cents. However, if your coin is in excellent or uncirculated condition, it can be worth more, anywhere from a few dollars to upwards of $20 or more, depending on its condition and mint mark. But if you have a rare 1977 Roosevelt dime with a minting error or a unique feature, you could be holding something much more valuable. In fact, some of these rare 1977 Roosevelt dimes have been known to sell for as much as $40,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $40,000 for a single dime. A coin like this could dramatically change the course of any coin collection, and it's proof that even the most seemingly ordinary coins can carry an extraordinary value. So, before you write off that old jar of change, take a moment to go through your dimes, especially if you have any from 1977. They could be more valuable than you think. As always, make sure to consult with a professional coin appraiser if you suspect your coin could be worth something special. Today, we're taking a close look at a coin that may seem like just another dime in your pocket or change jar, but it has the potential to be worth much more than its face value. We're diving into the world of the 1985 Roosevelt dime, a coin that, while not as famous as some others, has caught the attention of savvy collectors over the years. You might have one of these sitting around without realizing its hidden value, so stick with us until the end of the video to find out just how much this dime could be worth today. First, let's talk about the history of the Roosevelt dime and why it has become one of the most recognizable coins in American currency. Introduced in 1946, the Roosevelt dime was designed to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt following his death. FDR's legacy was central to the nation's recovery from the Great Depression and World War II, so it made perfect sense to commemorate him on a coin. The design, which features Roosevelt's portrait on the obverse, was created by sculptor John R. Sinek. On the reverse side of the coin, you'll see a torch, olive branch, and oak branch, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. The Roosevelt dime was intended to be a symbol of hope and resilience, and it quickly became a staple of American coinage. It has remained in circulation for decades, with few changes in its design. By 1985, the Roosevelt dime was already an established part of American currency, and most people thought of it as just another piece of pocket change. But for collectors, the 1985 version of this coin holds particular interest. So, what makes the 1985 Roosevelt dime special? Well, like with many coins, its value depends largely on a few key factors: condition, mint mark, and the possibility of minting errors. While this dime may not have as much attention as other rare coins, its value has seen a steady rise due to its relative rarity in certain conditions and certain unique features. One of the most important factors when evaluating the value of a 1985 Roosevelt dime is its condition. Over time, many of these coins have been circulated extensively, meaning they show signs of wear and tear. As a result, finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition is something rare and valuable. Coins in excellent or uncirculated condition tend to fetch much higher prices because they haven't been exposed to the same level of handling and wear. Collectors are always on the lookout for coins that have been carefully preserved and are free from scratches, discoloration, and other damage. The next factor to consider is the mint mark. You may have noticed that many U.S. coins have a small letter below the date on the reverse side. This letter indicates the mint where the coin was produced. For the 1985 Roosevelt dime, there are 3 possible mint marks you could find: D for the Denver Mint, S for the San Francisco Mint, and no mint mark at all for coins produced in Philadelphia. In general, coins with the S mint mark from San Francisco tend to be more valuable due to the lower mintage numbers from that facility in certain years. However, finding a 1985 Roosevelt dime with a unique mint mark isn't the only thing that can increase its value. Minting errors are another huge factor that can make a dime far more valuable than you might expect. Minting errors occur when something goes wrong during the production process, resulting in an unusual or unique feature on the coin. These errors can include things like double dies, off-center strikes, or incorrect planchets. Mint errors are highly collectible because they make each coin one of a kind. A common minting error you may come across in the 1985 Roosevelt dime is the double die error. This happens when the coin's die is misaligned during the minting process, causing the image to appear twice. In some cases, you might even be able to see the double-struck design on the date or the lettering on the coin. Double die errors are among the most sought-after mistakes by collectors, and they can dramatically increase the value of a coin. Another error to keep an eye out for is an off-center strike. This occurs when the coin is not properly aligned in the minting press, resulting in a coin with a misaligned design. An off-center 1985 Roosevelt dime, especially if it's a significant misalignment, can be quite valuable due to the rarity of such an occurrence. Collectors love these types of errors because they make the coin unique and unlike any other regular coin in circulation. Die cracks are yet another error that can make a 1985 Roosevelt dime worth more money. Die cracks occur when the die used to stamp the coins becomes damaged and develops cracks. These cracks can leave raised lines or patterns on the coin's surface, and collectors often find these coins fascinating due to their distinctiveness. So, how much could your 1985 Roosevelt dime be worth? If you have a regular, circulated coin from 1985, you're probably not looking at a huge return. In most cases, a 1985 Roosevelt dime in average condition is worth just a few cents over its face value. However, if you have one in uncirculated condition, or if it has a rare mint mark or minting error, the value skyrockets. For example, a 1985 Roosevelt dime in excellent, uncirculated condition can be worth anywhere from a few dollars to $10 or more, depending on its specific features. But if you have one with a rare minting error, like a double die or off-center strike, you could be looking at a much higher price. In fact, some of these dimes have been known to sell for as much as $34,000. Yes, that's right, $34,000 for a single dime. It's hard to believe that such a small coin could have such a big value, but for the right collector, it's a prized possession that if you think you might have a 1985 Roosevelt dime that fits this description, it's definitely worth taking a closer look at it. Check for any unique features or signs of minting errors that could set it apart from the rest. You might just be sitting on a hidden treasure without even realizing it. In conclusion, the 1985 Roosevelt dime is far from being just another dime in circulation. With the right condition, mint mark, or minting error, it could be worth a significant amount of money. So, take a moment to dig through your change jar, coin collection, or even check those old coins you've held onto for years. You never know what kind of treasure you might have waiting for you. Today, we have a coin that might be sitting in your change jar, forgotten and overlooked. But what if I told you that this seemingly ordinary dime could actually be worth far more than you think? Today, we're diving into the 1979 Roosevelt dime, an intriguing piece of U.S. history that has garnered attention from collectors for its value, rarity, and potential for big returns. Stick around to find out just how much this dime might be worth today. Let's start with a quick overview of the Roosevelt dime itself. First introduced in 1946, this coin was designed to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt following his death in 1945. Roosevelt was the 32nd President of the United States and led the country through some of its most challenging times, including the Great Depression and World War II. The dime was released to commemorate his legacy, particularly his work on the March of Dimes campaign to fight polio, a cause that Roosevelt was deeply connected to. The design of the Roosevelt dime features a profile of Roosevelt on the obverse side, and on the reverse, you'll find a torch, an olive branch, and an oak branch, representing liberty, peace, and strength, respectively. Over the years, this dime has become one of the most iconic coins in American currency. By the time we reach 1979, the Roosevelt dime had already been in circulation for over 3 decades. Yet, what makes the 1979 version particularly interesting is the potential for high value, depending on the condition of the coin and certain unique features that can make it stand out. While this dime may look like just another piece of change, there are certain circumstances that can make it far more valuable. The first thing to consider when evaluating the value of a 1979 Roosevelt dime is its condition. Like any coin, the better the condition, the higher its value. Coins that have been in circulation for years often show signs of wear, scratches, discoloration, and general damage that occurs when they pass through countless hands. However, a 1979 Roosevelt dime in uncirculated or gem condition is much more rare. These coins were never used in daily transactions and remain in pristine condition, making them highly sought after by collectors. If you have a 1979 dime that's been well preserved and shows no signs of wear, you could be looking at a coin that's worth significantly more than its face value. Another factor that could increase the value of your 1979 Roosevelt dime is the presence of a mint mark. Mint marks are small letters found under the date on the reverse side of the coin, indicating where the coin was produced. In the case of the 1979 Roosevelt dime, you may find one of 3 mint marks: D for the Denver Mint, S for the San Francisco Mint, or no mint mark at all, which would indicate the coin was minted at the Philadelphia Mint. Of these, the 1979 S mint mark, from San Francisco, is considered more valuable to collectors because of its lower mintage and the higher likelihood that fewer of these coins were well preserved. However, it's not just the condition or the mint mark that can drive the value of this dime. Mint errors are another key factor that collectors look for when determining the worth of a coin. Mint errors happen when something goes wrong during the coin's production. These errors can make the coin unique and, in some cases, dramatically increase its value. One of the most common types of mint errors is the double die error. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin is misaligned, causing the image to appear twice. If you come across a 1979 Roosevelt dime with a double die error, especially one where the date or the lettering is affected, it could be a highly valuable coin. Double die coins are extremely sought after by collectors, and they can bring in a considerable amount of money, especially if they're in excellent condition. Another mint error to be aware of is an off-center strike. An off-center coin happens when the coin isn't properly aligned in the press, resulting in a design that appears misaligned or lopsided. These errors are often considered highly collectible because they're rare and visually interesting. If you find a 1979 Roosevelt dime with an off-center strike, you could be holding a coin worth a lot more than face value. Die cracks are another form of mint error that can increase a coin's value. These cracks occur when the die used to mint the coins develops a flaw, which leaves a crack on the coin's surface. This can result in a distinct pattern or lines on the coin that make it stand out. A 1979 Roosevelt dime with a die crack can be valuable to collectors who are looking for something unique to add to their collection. Now, let's talk about how much this coin could actually be worth. If you have a 1979 Roosevelt dime in typical circulated condition, you're probably looking at a coin worth just a few cents over its face value. However, if you have a 1979 dime in uncirculated condition, or one with a rare mint mark or mint error, its value increases dramatically. Coins with rare mint marks, like the 1979 S mint mark from San Francisco, can be worth anywhere from a few dollars to upwards of $10 or more. But if you have a coin with a mint error, like a double die or an off-center strike, you could be in for a much bigger surprise. In fact, a 1979 Roosevelt dime with these rare errors has been known to sell for as much as $38,500. Yes, you read that correctly, $38,500 for a single dime. It's truly incredible that something as small as a dime could be worth such a large sum, but that's the power of rarity and unique features in the world of coin collecting. So, the next time you come across a 1979 Roosevelt dime, don't just toss it back into your change jar. Take a moment to inspect it carefully. Look for any signs of minting errors or unique characteristics that could set it apart from the rest. And if it's in exceptional condition, you could be holding onto a coin worth a significant amount of money. If you enjoyed learning about the 1979 Roosevelt dime, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another exciting coin discovery. Thanks for watching, and happy collecting!